Hi guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm here for another very quick Christmas craft fair idea slash kind of teacher's gift idea for you. So again, hopefully using up a few of your scraps of this time fabric and maybe some papers as well. So if I show you the little idea that I've got. So I have taken these to craft fairs and things like that before. And I have actually given a couple as teacher gifts. So basically what I've got is a little mini string of bunting, which I just think is so cute. So as you can see, it's pretty tiny. I mean, I haven't got a tape measure here, but I mean, this is a 12 by 12 sheet of paper that I've put underneath here just so you've got a clear surface to see. So I mean, as you can see, not including the loops for hanging the bunting, the actual bunting itself is only kind of approximately 12 inches. So really quite a tiny project, not going to use a ton of stuff, pretty quick to make. I mean, I obviously quite like the whole rusticy, shabby chic kind of look. So, I mean, mine are quite frayed on the edges. Of course, completely up to you how neat you want yours to look, how, you know, how perfect you want them to look. But, I mean, for me, sewing's not really kind of my thing. Let's face it, neatness and precision, not really my thing. So luckily, I like the shabby chic look. I don't know whether I like it because I like it or whether I like it because that's what I can achieve. I'm not sure. But, you know, for me, I think these look really cute. And as you can see, I've just threaded it onto some twine. And then I've just finished the ends off with a couple of buttons. So, I mean, again, you're using up quite a bit of your, you know, junk journal supplies here. So you're using up, obviously, some scraps of fabric, you know, only tiny pieces required, buttons. And then what I quite like to do is make little bags for them. So again, you can either use some of your old, excuse me, I've just got a sneeze coming. Oh, maybe not. Some of your old papers and things and make a little paper pouch like this. Again, I've just punched a couple of holes in and made a little handle there. I've put one of Rachel from Roxy Creations, one of her labels on the front. So you could write, you know, if this were a teacher gift to so-and-so from so-and-so. And then you can just obviously wind your bunting up, you know, by folding it like concertina style, like that. Now, I quite like then using a little bit of baker's twine or a bit more twine would be absolutely fine too, to then, if I just wrap that around, oops, like that, and then just tie that in a pretty bow, like that. Oops. Oh, like that, and then obviously pop the whole thing inside the bag, and that's your gift. Or indeed, obviously, a craft item. So that's the item that we're going to make. So if I just move this out of the way, brought along a whole bunch of, you know, fabric scraps and things here. Now, as I say, I am not one for measuring and I am not one for, you know, neatness or precision or anything like that. So if you are, you will probably be literally shuddering at my appalling methods that I, you know, will be using. So I apologize now in advance for my awful methods. I've got here some book page that I've basically just cut it down into, you know, like a banner shape basically to make my flags from. So just decide which way round I want my fabric. This is some old bunting, strangely enough. We're making bunting from bunting. The irony of that is ridiculous, isn't it? But never mind. So all I'm going to do is fold my flag piece over and then pop it against my fabric, you know, as best I can. And then I'm just going to cut it. Now, as you can see, you know, that's not even quite fitting that fabric, but it's fine. I will just chop it down and, you know, alter it accordingly. So we just chop it like that, chop our couple of, you know, V-type points at the bottom like that. Now, I mean, as you can see here, it's then, you know, not reaching, but that's fine. I'll just trim down this side, and then I'll just trim that little leg as well. You know, and now that looks okay. So, oh gosh, come on. Can't even separate the fabric now. I mean, obviously those other ones that I made were made more from like upholstery fabric, which, you know, is probably, I have to be honest, better for this project, because it's obviously a lot thicker and more, well, I mean, I guess it doesn't need to be robust, but, you know, it's a lot thicker. So it's going to give a sort of better effect. This is quite thin, flimsy fabric, but it's fine. You know, it will work just as well, and, you know, will hopefully look just as pretty. So there's those two flags. Obviously, I don't want them all the same. So I've got here some actual upholstery fabric. This was just some that I managed to get from a shop here. So I think I'll mix it with that. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that down there like that. And again, just trim that down. You know, and I'm really not worrying too much. I don't mind if some of the flags are bigger than others. I don't mind, you know, anything really. All I'm doing is getting a very rough template to work from here. So that's my rough template. Obviously now I will just neaten that up a little bit. And again down that side. Like that. It's a hideous day here. It's really raining and really miserable. It's very dark outside. I've got the lights on, which I obviously do have for videos anyway, but it's one of those days where it would be incredibly dark without the lights. Now here I've got some more upholstery fabric, and this is just plain blue, so I'm just going to then again just fold that over and then cut a couple more sort of flags from here. So just make that a bit smaller so it's a bit more manageable. Like that. And that one there. Now for me, what I will do, because I am certainly, you know, no seamstress at all, so I will probably stitch around this and then trim the edges up to, you know, neaten it up a bit further. Obviously, my methods are, you know, shambolic, to say the least. You know, you probably are much better on the sewing machine and things like that than me, and will probably make, you know, a much neater job of doing this kind of thing. But I guess really what I'm trying to illustrate is, you know, just the basic piece, really, how to do it. And also, you know, give you some ideas for if you're thinking, oh, what could we do at the craft fair that's a bit different to last year or something like that. And again, obviously, if you've got some fabric scraps, these are quite nice to make for your own craft room too. So I know that I've made a couple of these for, you know, like my daughter's bedroom and things like that. So here we go. I'll just trim that down there. Trim that one there, like that. And that one there. Okay, so that's my flags, like that. I have to say I'm not quite 100% sure about that middle one, but let me see what other fabric I've got that might be. Oh, perhaps I prefer this one, so let me just have a look and see whether I would prefer this one. I don't want to go for the wrong one and kind of then wish I'd gone for something different. So just again pop my fabric down, cut my rough banner shapes there. Oops. Like that. just like that, and that one there. Come on. Okay, so I mean, unfortunately, this is a little bit, you know, inclined to fraying. Obviously, you could use your pinking shears. I haven't used mine because, to be honest, I could do with a new pair. So, you know, mine are not really working too well at the moment. But of course, that is, you know, probably a better option, to be honest. So then just get your twine. Now you want to make obviously a, you know, a loop at each end. So I would start by just making, you know, your loop one end. Doesn't need to be huge. I mean, people are generally going to be hanging these, you know, on a little nail or a little pin or something like that, aren't they? Because they're not a huge, great big piece of bunting. They're just small. So just make your end. And then all you're going to do, actually, I am just wondering whether I prefer it like that. No, I'm going to go with it as I had it, I think. Now, you can now use your Fabri-Tac to secure it just onto your twine. So I'll just move that out of the way. Like that. Oops. I mean, as you can see, I find this all very fiddly, but, you know, you guys are probably, you know, a little bit better at handling delicate things than I am. So there's your first one. Then you just go along, obviously, for all of your pieces. So just do my next one. Now in the past, what I've done, because I'm new to Fabri-Tac, so I did not have Fabri-Tac before, I popped a little knot here in between each flag, so as I had a space. Now I'm hoping that by using the Fabri-Tac, I don't actually need to do that now. Obviously time will tell. But I mean, hopefully that will kind of get around that problem. So just glue another one. Oops. Like that. I like the shapes of these little flags, to be honest. I think they're really quite sweet. So there's that one. Oops, that one's not really going so well. Right, let's just hold that down for a minute. And obviously, if you are having struggles getting them to kind of stay together, just, you know, add a bit more glue just to assist it a little bit. Because obviously, you know, you're going to, or I'm going to take this down to my sewing machine and finish it off there. So, I mean, really all you're trying to do is kind of hold it together enough until you get down to your sewing machine. I mean, you might have your sewing machine right beside your desk, in which case you could probably just hook them on here without even gluing them. You know, I obviously am doing this for the purposes of the video, really. So as you can see, you know, how it comes together. And then get your last one. And I mean, again, obviously, not just teachers' gifts, but these are quite nice for, you know, like Secret Santas and all that kind of stuff. I think these are quite a good gift for things like that too. There we go. Okay. Oops, just move that along a little bit. So that's all there is to that. Now I'm going to stitch that around on the sewing machine. So let me just move that to one side. And we'll do another one, so we've got kind of a couple of different colourways, so it's a bit more interesting to show you guys. So I've got here this beautiful fabric that was gifted to me by Laura. Really nice fabric, and I have used this on a project actually. So again, oops, take your fabric, let me decide which way I want my banner to kind of be. So probably like that, I think. So I'm just going to just going to chop this down so it's a bit more manageable, because again, I struggle to, well, I struggle to do anything that's slightly fiddly. So having a slightly smaller, more manageable piece of fabric is, you know, definitely a must for me. Just going to check that I'm filming and that I'm in frame. Ugh. You know, when you're doing a different project, and obviously I'm normally doing my junk journals, and I just thought I'd best try, you know, check that this is coming out okay, just in case it was like off the screen completely or something. So that's that piece. And just trim this, oops, trim this down. Made a hideous job of this one, my gosh. I mean, again, I could obviously, you know, hold this onto this fabric with a bulldog clip or something like that, would probably be helpful. But I mean, obviously I'm just trying to very quickly really demonstrate the method. Well, my method. I'm not saying the method, because obviously I'm sure you guys have a much better method than mine, but just trying to demonstrate the idea, let's just say. So, and again, fold that down. And then just take my banner and then just cut that across. There we go. And then just chop in here. I mean, I can't believe we're doing Christmas projects. My gosh. The year has literally flown by. Flown by. Oh my gosh, look at the mess that I've made of this one. Let me just sort this one out, because I made a hideous job of that. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, what is going on with my cutting today? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just have those days where I'm especially clumsy and, you know, especially struggle. It's obviously one of those days today, so I do apologise. Right, there we go. So that's that piece. Well, that's those ones. Oops, sorry, my daughter's curly hair there. Right, then I've got this, again, upholstery fabric. So I'm just going to, again, just use some of this. These are from a shop here called Laura Ashley, and it's just really great because occasionally in R1 they sell off their fabric remnants, and oddly enough I went in another one once and asked if they did the same, and they actually said they're not allowed to do that. So I didn't want to obviously get my local one in trouble, but yeah, my local one does it, and it's fantastic, because obviously, I mean, what use are those remnants to them? I mean, I'm thinking remnants, you know, like the swatches and things like that, when they discontinue a line, you know, why not sell them? Because obviously, I mean, I'm not saying everyone would want tiny little scraps of fabric, but I mean, for me, they're just perfect. So yeah, I don't know why they're not allowed to do that generally, but certainly glad that my one does. Right, so that's those two. And then, I mean, I could like do a bit of fusion and kind of mix it up. Not sure whether I'm brave enough. So we could have like a pink in there, or we could keep it very kind of neutral and, you know, not be too colour clashy. Probably we should do that, because just because I like to clash the colours, I know that not everybody obviously does. So, oops, again, some more of that upholstery fabric. So I'll just fold that in like that. And then just cut that down. Come on, come on. Okay. And the little bags that I kind of popped these in, I mean, obviously I made that little bag from paper. So again, that's another thing that I do sometimes at, you know, craft fairs, is just make my own little paper bags. And again, purely because, I mean, they're quite fun to make. I quite like making a bunch, you know, when I'm watching TV and things. But also, it's quite a good way to use up your papers that you don't necessarily like or aren't going to use anymore. So I quite like doing that. But I mean, if you didn't want to make paper bags, you could always make little fabric pouches, which I will try and remember to show you a couple of little fabric ones after we do this. And of course, you know, I mean, that little bag that I showed you, I hadn't really decorated it up at all. But I mean, again, depending on how much time you want to spend on this, I mean, obviously if it's a craft fair item, it's probably a bit different because you're probably making a whole bunch and you wouldn't want to be spending too much time making the item. But if it's like a teacher gift, then you may want to spend a little bit more time personalising it, or, you know, maybe pop some lace on the bag, things like that. Just up to you really how you do it, but I just think they're quite you know, quite pretty. So here we go. Oh, I've made a really small loop on that one. Oh well. I mean, again, it doesn't matter because people are generally going to be hanging these on just some you know, pins or whatever. So right, do we like it this way round with the check inside, or do we want it with the pattern inside? I think I prefer this with the pattern actually. Right, so again, just going to get my check piece there. Well, gingham or check, or there we go. I'm never really sure whether this kind of check, whether this classes as gingham when it's not that tiny kind of gingham, if that makes sense. I mean, I think obviously lots of people call that plaid, don't they? So maybe we should call it plaid. Anyway, I do love checks and plaids and gingham. So there's that one. Just pop on next one on. So I mean, you just want a small gap there between the flags. You know, I just think you don't want them touching, but you know, again, each to their own. I prefer mine not touching, but you know, you may think that they're okay touching. So there we go. Let me just spread that out a bit. So I just leave literally like a millimetre or so's gap. I don't know really whether it would matter if you didn't. I have to be truthful. You know, I don't know whether that would matter or not. There we go. And just then fold that over. Oh my gosh, what is going on with me? Right. This is just awful. I don't know why, but every time I'm moving this, it's just all moving around. So, oh, I'm surprised that I have anybody actually watch my videos at all, to be honest. Well, hopefully the ideas are okay, even if the delivery is off. Right, that one. Oh gosh, come on. Oh, I had a really stroppy 13-year-old today. Oh, I don't know what it is, but, well, I do, I guess. It's hormones, isn't it? And it's an age thing, but... Well, he was stroppy yesterday and stroppy today. So I said, oh, I think we'll have mum and son time tonight. I mean, that just really means just me and him spending a bit of time together, you know, without the rest of the family. So sometimes we'll go out, but we're saving up at the moment, so we're not going to be going out. So we'll probably just watch a movie in his room. Maybe I'll make something sort of nice. Well, not nice, but, you know, kind of like fun to eat. Like maybe make him hot dogs or something like that. Maybe some nachos with some cheese and stuff. You know, nice food that's nice to eat whilst you watch a movie or something. And we'll just watch a movie in his room. Something like that. That's all that really we'll be doing. Sometimes in the summer we might go for a walk or something, and you know, that's quite nice to do. But obviously it's now dark by kind of, you know, 6:30 or whatever, so it's not really great. And as you can hear, it's already raining, so I think it's going to be raining all day. So even if I don't mind going out for a walk in the dark, it's not probably great going for a walk in the dark and the rain. Right, there's my next bunting. So all I'm going to do is obviously take that down to the sewing machine and stitch around that, and then I will be back. Right guys, I am back now. So I've tidied up the threads and things like that were hanging. Obviously, you know, stitched around my bunting and tidied up the threads. So what I've got now is obviously my little strip of bunting, which I'm just going to tie now the other end in a loop, sort of like that one. So you just want it roughly the same sort of size. You know, you don't want one end with a massive loop and one end with just a teeny one. So you want them just similar size. Oops. Oh my gosh, look at what I've done. Exactly what I said not to do. Oh my gosh, what is going on? You see, this is just why videos just, oh, very hit and miss. Right, so let's try again. So you just want a similar size loop, not massively different like it was. So there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to now cut that end off like that. Okie dokie. Now, what I did was I've obviously dug out some bits and pieces to use to just finish this little strip of bunting off. Now, I have a funny feeling actually that the other one that I showed just now had 6 flags. But, you know, that's fine. I think the 5 flags look really, you know, super cute. To be honest, I don't think it needs 6. I've dug out some blue toned buttons. So I'm just going to have a quick look through and decide which ones to use. I mean, they're really pretty, aren't they? So I've already threaded my needle. I thought I would spare you that that experience of watching me try and thread the needle, especially as today just everything I touch just seems to be disaster. Oh my gosh, look, I've threaded it, I've knotted it, I've cut it off, and now look what I've done. I now caught it as I picked it up, and so now my knot's completely somewhere, oh my gosh, somewhere else. Might have to actually knot that again. So it seems that since since the first part of the video to obviously going off to my sewing machine and now coming back, the quality has just deteriorated further. So I apologise for that. It's probably because it's getting near lunchtime, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Ugh. Keep on knotting this and it's not actually knotting in the same place at all. So okay, right, let's trim that down. Fingers crossed now for this part of the video. That's all I can say. I mean, of course, obviously you could just glue your buttons on. I mean, I'm stitching them on, but yeah, I mean, glue would be fine. My hot glue gun has now given up the ghost, so I've got to order a new one. Otherwise, I may actually have just done that, so you know, so you didn't have to endure watching me faff around trying to get the buttons on. But yeah, I think I've said before, I mean, my glue guns seem to have like a shelf life of like a year or two. I mean, to be fair, although that doesn't sound that long probably, they do quite well, because I mean, I have them on every single time I'm crafting. You know, even if I don't end up using it, I always flick it on as soon as I get to my desk. So you know, I don't think that's too bad, to be honest. I mean, I always buy the same one because I like the fine end of my glue gun. It's a Bosch is the brand, and it has kind of quite a fine end compared to others. I mean, I have seen sometimes some people on videos with really fine tips. Now, I don't know where they get those from. I've kind of Googled it before, and it seems like you have to buy a special kind of tip. But those tips seem really pricey. So, you know, the Bosch one I find is a good fine tip for the price I'm willing to pay. So, you know, I think those... Oh my gosh, what is going on here? I think those Bosch glue guns, they're around £20 normally. You know, obviously I've had about 3 of them. So I think once I did manage to get one for about £16 somewhere. But I think that was just, you know, very lucky. It was a one-off. I think generally they're about 20. So, yeah. But I do, you know, I do love it. And as I say, although it has broken several times, I have it on an awful lot. So, you know, I don't think it does too badly. Right, I'll just knot my thread again to do a button the other end. And again, I mean, you don't have to have the buttons. I just think they look quite sweet and quite a nice way to finish off the bunting, to be honest. But I mean, it's purely a decorative thing and purely personal choice how you want to do that. So there we go, just trim that down. Okay, so I'm going to go for this one at this end. Again, the buttons, they're not identical, but they're just very similar toned colours. So I think that's, you know, good enough. I mean, actually, do we want everything identical always? Sometimes it's nice to have things slightly different, isn't it? So there we go. Just stitch that on. And I mean, obviously, you know, the twine, you know, is quite thin to get my needle through, if that makes sense. So if in doubt, and if you're slightly concerned whether or not it's actually going to grab your button, just dab a little bit of glue on the button as well, just as an extra measure, really. So there we go. Oops, come on. Yeah, it's still raining, still dark, still horrible. So it definitely, I think the rain is here for the day. So I hope you're all having a good day. Hope the weather's better where you are. I always find it fascinating, the different weathers around the world, you know, that I'm looking out here at this hideous, dark, drab day, and that somewhere the sun is shining and it's glorious and lovely. And I mean, that just, I find really fascinating. Right, there we go. So I'll just trim that off. Another bit of thread that I've missed there. And that's our little bunting all finished. So, I mean, again, what you could do now is make a little coordinating bag. So, I mean, I've got here another little flag from the original bunting. I could probably make a little bag from that, to be honest, because obviously the bunting's pretty small. So if I just, you know, concertina that up to C, I could probably actually stitch a little bag to match that, which would be then just perfect. Obviously I'm not going to probably do that because this video will end up really massively long. But again, I mean, I could just make my little paper bag, you know, that I showed you obviously at the beginning of the video for the other one. And then in a minute, I'm going to show you on, you know, when I finish this other bunting, I'm going to show you just a little couple of ideas of how to display bunting at a craft fair. Obviously not if it's really long, but these kinds of little, you know, smallish buntings. So yeah, right, so this one again, I have obviously, you know, trimmed off all the frays. I mean, this is tatty, but you know, as I say, that's my my style, I'm afraid. So got here some little bows that obviously I've already tied, and I just thought actually this one, maybe instead of the buttons, that I thought the bows might be nice instead. I've also got some twine bows, but actually I quite like the contrast here of the of the brown bows. Now, do we want them just at the end? And maybe a couple there. Or is that like too many bows? I don't want to do too many, but I do think they look nice. And again, obviously, I would just glue this ordinarily with my hot glue. Now, I don't have my hot glue, as I said, so I'm going to use this Fabri-Tac. Oops. If I can actually undo it, I will use the Fabri-Tac. So, obviously, this doesn't dry as quickly as the hot glue. So, I might have to, like, bulldog clip this together. So, I've just popped that on there. Let me just get a couple of bulldog clips. So, just get one. Just hold that one in place. That one there. And we'll just do the next one. You know, these are just some little bows that I've made. You know, that effectively I just had these in my stash ready. And I just thought they went really nicely colour-wise. And just to mix it up really from the buttons. And the other thing that you could do is you could have a word on here. Like, I mean, obviously not this one because this is 5, but if you had the 6 flags, you could have the word love or the word home. And you could obviously die cut that with your, you know, your Big Shot machine if you've got one or something. You know, or you could freehand cut it. Oops, I've forgotten to knot the end of that. So let me pop this on this end and knot the end of the, for the loop. Yeah, if you haven't got a Big Shot or any of, you know, any of those kinds of things, you could probably do a template. I have seen people do, you know, templates for letters. Personally, I don't think I could because it looks very fiddly. You know, my letters would end up absolutely ginormous for me to be able to, you know, manage to cut them in any sort of way resembling a letter. But I have seen other people do it quite successfully. So depending on how how good you are at your cutting skills and what have you, you may be able to just freehand cut some letters. Well, not freehand, but, you know, using a template, but I just mean with scissors rather than a machine. As I say, definitely I could not do that. No, no way. Yeah, I definitely just couldn't do that. So I'm just popping my last bow on there. So again, let me just grab a bulldog clip, hold that one in place. Oops, I thought I had one floating around, but oh, I must have another one here. Yep. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that clamped like that for a moment. Okay, so we've got obviously our little cute bunting pieces here. So let me just move these buttons and what have you out of the way. I mean, you know, not that it matters because my desk obviously looks atrocious, but hopefully it's slightly better for you guys to see. So that's that one. Now I have got other little buntings to show you, but I'm not going to do a tutorial because it's obviously very, very similar, but obviously just cut to different shapes and things. But what I will do is show you just how I quite like to display my buntings at a craft fair. So we'll just go over there. Okay guys, so this is what I normally use for hanging up my bunting at a craft fair. So I've got here the one with the grey edging. It's just an old picture that I used to have in my living room. And as you can see, I mean, it's pretty large. I don't know what the size was, but maybe like, I don't know, 16 by 20 or something like that. And what I did, I obviously took the glass out and the picture, and then I just put burlap over the entire picture and then framed it. I mean, it looks really creased in the video, but I think that's shadows because actually in real life it doesn't really look really creased. And then what I did was I just painted the frame grey. The frame used to be gold, so I painted the frame grey, and then I've just attached string around to hang my bunting from. And as you can see, I've just decorated up with a couple of kind of lace ribbons, just so it looks kind of pretty. And then I've got various different types of bunting on there. So, you know, obviously I'm not going to do a tutorial on all of them, but just different types of bunting, much longer pieces. And then there's that little piece that I just showed you just now. So that's kind of one way that I hang it. And I'm not going to manage to actually hold this up, I think, to be able to show you. So, okay, so I mean, I've obviously now hooked that on for you to see. So I've just pegged it with, you know, some of those tiny little pegs that we use in our junk journals. So that's just how, you know, I would attach that. And obviously the longer ones, I've just wound the twine around the string. So that's how they're attached on. And then the other one, it's exactly the same concept. This was one of those picture frames, you know, with like multiple pictures going up it. So again, I took the glass out and the actual picture mountings out. And again, just backed it with some burlap. And then I've also attached some string going across. And the reason that I did that is because this is really handy for if you're selling things like, you know, the flower. So again, I've hung them on with just those tiny pegs. And they just look really cute, don't they? And then the beauty of it is obviously on the other ones, you can also put your bunting on. And I just hang that with the some sellotape just around the back of the frame. So literally, you know, my loops, if I just pull that in, my looped pieces are just tucked around the back of the frame and I just sellotape them on. So this one, I'll just see now if it's done from the gluing of the bows. So, I mean, that's now sellotaped on there, just at the back, and looks really cute, doesn't it? So, you know, you've got then multiple spaces, I guess is what you'd say, multiple spaces to put multiple different items. So just looks really pretty, I think, you know, for a craft fair. And obviously then, I mean, I've used these about 3 times, I think. So I just then store them, you know, in the loft. Because obviously they're just flat. They just kind of slot beside each other. And obviously, you know, they're empty at that point. And then obviously you can keep your bags and things that you're going to pack your bunting in. Like your little gift bag. You can just keep to one side, and then when someone buys one, if it's not one that's already in the gift bag, you can just obviously take it off of your stand and concertina fold it up and pop it into the bag. So I hope that you like that little Christmas craft fair idea. And, you know, if you have some scraps of fabric and things, you know, it's worth making some little bunting pieces because I think they're just really sweet. So hope that you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'd love to hear your comments below, and if you could give this video a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you all again soon. Thanks, Em. Bye.